Welcome back to part 2 of my Flutter Animations tutorial about how to build an interactive page flip widget. In part 1 we have created a page flip builder widget using Animation Controller Animated Builder along with a custom 3D matrix transform. And we have managed to get the page flip effect working when we press this button. But we are not done just yet, and we still need to make our page flip builder interactive. This is going to be a tough challenge, so let's flex our coding muscles and dive in. And by the way, you can find this tutorial in written format on my website at this page. And if you want to code along, you can also download the starter project from the link in the description below. Okay, so let's get started and let's see how to make this transition interactive. The main idea here is to use a gesture detector to detect horizontal drag gestures on screen and update the animation controller's value based on the pointer delta. So let's scroll down to the build method over here, and here we can add a parent gesture detector to our animated page flip builder. And over here we can add an argument called onHorizontalDragUpdate, and we can use this to call a method called handleDragUpdate. And then we need to create this method. So here we're going to define void handleDragUpdate. This will take an argument of type dragUpdateDetails, and then inside the method body we can have final screen width equal to media query of context.size.width, and then we can modify the controller value and add the details.primary delta, and here we can use an exclamation mark divided by the screen width. So let me point out a couple of things. This details.primary delta tells us how much the pointer has moved along the primary axis. It is a nullable variable, but we can safely use the assertion operator because it is always non-null for one-dimensional drag gestures such as on horizontal drag update. Also, our controller's value can range from 0 to 1. So we want to map this to the screen width so that dragging from one side to the other completes exactly one flip. So we divide the primary delta by the screen width that we get from media query. And if we hot reload the app now, we can notice two things. The interactive drag works when we drag from the left to the right and vice versa. But if we start from the front page and try to drag to the left, then nothing happens. Also, if we release the pointer midway, then the page remains partially rotated and does not complete the flip animation. So we had to do this manually. So let's try to solve these problems, starting with the first one. Our problem is that our animation controller's value's default range goes from 0 to 1, and when we drag to the left, details.primary delta will have a negative value, but the controller's value will not go below 0. So to account for this, we need to explicitly set a lower bound and upper bound in our animation controller. So here we can set a lower bound of -1 and an upper bound of 1. And if we hot restart now, we are welcome with this page which is very stretched. So what's going on here? Well, we now have a problem because our matrix transform code was only designed to work in the range between 0 and 1, but for negative values things get quite wonky. And now we need to handle all animation values between -1 and 1. So let's fix this. And before we write any code, I want to show you these two charts that represent the rotation angle and the tilt value as a function of the animation value. So what we are going to do next is to create some separate methods to calculate the tilt and rotation angle so that they match the values in these charts. So let's do this, and over here I'm also going to define a boolean getter variable called isAnimationFirstHalf, and this will return animation.value.absolute value less than 0.5. So this variable will be true when the animation value is between -0.5 and 0.5. Then I can define a double getTilt method, and inside the body I can write all the code that I need to return the tilt as a function of the animation value. And then down here I can do the same thing and define a double rotation angle method, and inside the body I'm also adding all the code that I need to calculate the rotation value, like this. And once again, these methods calculate exactly the same values that are represented in these two charts. And the next step is to use these methods inside our animated builder. So over here, we can remove all the previous calculations like this, and instead we can type final child equal to is animation first half, and then we can use the ternary operator and return front builder if this is true, otherwise we can return back builder. And then we can update the values that we pass to our matrix transform. So here we can call our rotation angle method, and here we can call our get tilt method like this. So if we hot reload now and try things out, we can notice that we can drag the page in both directions, which is exactly what we wanted. But we still have one small problem, and that is that when we press the flip button, then the page flips 2 times and not 1. So this is because the animation controller's value now goes from -1 to 1, which corresponds to rotation angles between -pi and pi. And this covers 2 whole rotations. Ideally, when we flip the page with this button, we want the animation value to start from 0 and go forward to 1 or in reverse to -1. And this will ensure that we rotate the page only one time. So to accomplish this, we need to make some changes. So let's scroll all the way up to the place where we define our animation controller. And here I can add a comment and then set the controller's value to 0, like this. And then I can scroll down to the update status method, and here we can reset the controller's value to 0 when the animation is complete. And this ensures that the controller is ready for the next animation. But if we hot restart and we try to test this, we can see that we have a problem, because resetting the value to 0 causes the page to switch from back to front when the animation completes. So the last step is to use the show front side variable to choose the correct child in the animated builder code. And what we want to do is to modify the condition inside this ternary operator by taking the exclusive OR between the animation first half and the show front side variables. And because of the way exclusive OR works, we also want to swap the front and back builder inside the ternary operator. So if we hot reload now and we try to flip the page, we can see that the animation now completes correctly, and that's because this change compensates for resetting the controller's value to 0 when the animation completes. Okay, so we are nearly done, and we just need to tackle one last problem, and that is that if we release the pointer midway, then the page remains partially rotated and does not complete the flip animation. So how can we tell our animation controller to complete the animation if we release the pointer midway? And the trick is to use the fling method. So let's see how to use this. And our goal is to complete the animation automatically when we stop dragging the page. So in order to do this, we need to add an on-horizontal drag end callback to our gesture detector, and this will call an handle drag end method that we are going to create. So up here we can create a void handle drag end method which takes a drag end details argument, and then inside the body we can add the logic that we need. So first of all, we can add a condition that says if controller.is animating or controller.status is animation status.completed or controller.status is animation status.dismissed, then we return early. So this makes sure that nothing happens if the controller status is completed or dismissed. Then we're going to get the screen width from our media query like we have done before. And then we need to calculate the fling velocity to check how fast we are dragging our page. So this is obtained from details.velocity.pixels/second.dx, and we can divide this by the screen width. And once we have this, we can add another defensive check that says if controller.value is 0 or fling velocity is 0, then we can return early. So these are all defensive checks that we are putting in place so that we don't do anything unless necessary. And now comes the most interesting part. Like we said before, the idea is to fling our animation controller with a call that looks like this. But depending on the current value of the animation, we need to fling with a positive or a negative value. In fact, to do this correctly, we need to divide the entire animation range into 4 sub-ranges and fling the controller according to these rules. So let's remove this line, and then we can try to implement this logic in code. So first of all, we can declare a fling velocity and set it to a sensible value, like 2 for example, and then we can implement all these conditions like this. So all these if-else statements take care of dividing our animation range in 4 sub-ranges, and we can use the fling method with either a positive or a negative fling velocity. So let's try to hot reload and see what happens. And as we can see, when we are on the front page and we release the pointer, then the page flips all the way to the back page. On the other hand, if we flip the page like this and release, then everything works correctly. So it seems like our fling effect doesn't work correctly in all cases, and this is because it's not possible to tell our controller to fling to a value of 0. Instead, the controller will overshoot and go all the way to 1 or -1. However, this is something that we can fix by changing the controller's value and the show front side variable at the same time. So what we are going to do next is to add some code to the last 2 else-if statements, and on this one we can subtract 1 from the value of the controller, and we can toggle the show front side variable inside the call to set state, and inside this statement we can add 1 to the value of the controller, and we can also toggle the state like this. And now that we made these changes, we can hot reload once again, and this time we can see that no matter how we try to flip the page, the transition always completes correctly. So this works, but as we can see, the page still flicks back to the starting position even if we try to drag the page quite fast. So it would be even better if we could flick the page to the other side if the current velocity is greater than the fling velocity. And to make that happen, we need to add these additional conditions to our if-else statements. So I'm not going to explain this line by line, but the main idea is to fling one way or the other based on both the controller's value and the current velocity. And with this in place, we can hot reload the up one last time and we can have some fun playing with it. So if you made it all the way to this point, then congratulations, you're a Flutter Animations Pro. Okay, so we have now completed our interactive page flip widget, and along the way we have learned how to pass an animation controller as an input to an animated builder widget. We have seen how to use animated builder and transform widgets to implement 3D rotations, and also how to use a gesture detector to work with drag gestures. We have seen how to use the animation controller's lower bound and upper bound properties in practice, along with some tricks for preserving the page state. And we have also seen how to use the fling method to complete an animation. You can use Page Flip Builder to add a touch of magic and make your apps more fun to play with. And I published this package on pub.dev so that you can easily install it and use it to flip pages, cards, or widgets of any size. And if you want to learn more about animations, then this page on the Flutter website is a great place to start. In any case, I plan to cover animations more in detail in the future. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If this video has helped you, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.